Good morning and good afternoon from wherever you are. We are delighted that you are joining us for this TADAT Coffee Chat, where we're going to discuss very insightful reforms that help us achieve the desired and effective approach when it comes to performance outcome area 1, performance outcome area 4, and performance outcome area 5. That is the taxpayer register and its impact on filing and payments. So today's topic is post TADAT assessments, post TADAT assessment reforms, and a lesson for global tax administrations. We are joined by two very able gentlemen who have served the tax administration for more than 10, 15 years. And I'm going to give them 1 minute to introduce themselves before we dive into this very interesting topic. I'll start by welcoming Mr. Mahmoud from Mauritius Revenue Authority to give a brief introduction to himself and one thing that he would like us to understand what led him to joining the tax administration and what really excites him about tax administration reforms. Mr. Mahmoud, you're welcome.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dama. Good morning or good afternoon to all of you, depending on where you are. I'm Mahmoud Luzi, as Dama said, and I'm the Director, Operational Services Department of the Mauritius Revenue Authority. Mauritius is a small island in the middle of the Indian Ocean. In fact, I joined the tax administration in 1979, just after secondary school, and university studies came afterwards, such that today I've been working with the same tax administration for more than, let's say, 45 years, and I am passionate about taxation. My whole life I have been doing taxation. One thing that, as Dama said, people don't know that maybe I can share with you. At school, I was a science student, but then I caught the virus of financial, all those financial things when I started at the tax administration department in 1979. And it has been really an exciting journey. And I started, I must say, at the very bottom of the ladder, not even as clerical officer. I started as giving assistance as clerical officer. So it was in 79, and luckily, I climbed the ladder, did my studies, and today I'm the Director of Operational Services. I'm responsible for registration, filing, third-party data, as well as debt management, and many other functions as well. Thank you.
45 years. 45 years. And what's really exciting is to understand that Mr. Mahmoud started from a scientist background. So this is really insightful. I'd also like to mention that Mr. Mahmoud is the acting Director General of the Mauritius Revenue Authority, and it is a great honor to have you in this platform today discussing post TADAT assessment reforms. Mr. El Guja from Georgia, please welcome.
Hello, everyone. Greeting from Georgia. It's really a pleasure that I have opportunity and chance to be on this coffee chat, TADAT coffee chat. I am El Guja Loliashvili, Head of Information Processing and Analysis Division at Revenue Service of Georgia, where I'm working nearly 20 years. Of course, it's not 45, but it at least is something near to half of this 25 years. So my background is also I started from service department and included other different departments as well, including large taxpayer office. What really, as Ahmed have mentioned, this job is also first job of mine after the university. I just have started, and it was really thrilling how importance of this taxation and how changing world we have and what opportunity we had to change in taxation, and it's really very interesting and thrilling. So I'm one more time happy that I'm here, and also I had chance to be a TADAT assessor in previous TADAT assessments that was done assessed in Georgia. So I I'm quite familiar with the TADAT tool, and I'm happy that I can participate in this event.
Thank you so much. So today, we are going to have a wealth of knowledge from tax administrators. My name is Demakri Nyandigisi. I work for the Kenya Revenue Authority. I have been there for the past 16 years, and I am also a TADAT assessor. Once again, welcome to this TADAT coffee chat. We'll go straight into the topic. And gentlemen, if you all agree that taxpayer registration is really the anchor. It's really the bedrock for every process in the tax administration. It affects quite a number of processes. If you don't get it right at the taxpayer registration level, then when you come to filing and when you come to compliance, audit, and all the other processes, key processes, you will not get it right because your taxpayer register is inaccurate. Could you explain the importance of a complete, accurate, and up-to-date taxpayer registration database to a tax administration? Why is it so critical for us to have accurate taxpayer registers? And I'll start with Mr. Mahmoud. Please just explain to us the importance of this.
Okay, thank you, Dama. I mean, you rightly said it. This is the most important element in the functions of a tax administration, because it's like I can describe it as the backbone of the tax administration system, of the tax system. If the backbone is not strong, is not correct, is not complete, is not working well, we'll get everything wrong. So it is the list, it is the database on which everything will be plugged in. It is on this taxpayer registration that we'll get who is required to file a return, who among those who are on the list of taxpayer registration, who are registered for VAT, and who are those who are registered for income tax, who are those who are registered as an employer for PAY. Everything plugs in on the taxpayer register. So this is critical. We need to get the taxpayer register right, accurate, complete, and up to date. Because if we want to be an effective tax administration, we need to ensure that all our taxpayers are there. Then we can monitor, administer, and see who are those who are compliant and who are those who are not compliant. Remember, the prime responsibility of a tax administration is to ensure that every person pays his tax, pays his fair share of his tax, and this can only happen if that person is on the register. If he is not on the register, it means that at the start itself, you are missing something important. That's my comments. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mahmoud. Two words that you brought out, the backbone, that I would like us to carry through, that the taxpayer register is truly the backbone, and that it is critical to get it right from the start because of monitoring the compliance of taxpayers. So as you clearly put it, it definitely has an impact on our processes. Mr. Alguja, please welcome, just to share what, in your view, what are some of the critical things that make you believe that having a complete and accurate taxpayer register is the value of having a complete and accurate taxpayer register. Please go ahead.
Thank you. It's really hard to add something because it was Mr. Mahmoud told everything very in detail, but I will try to add some insights from my side. Of course, we are all well aware about the four main obligations of taxpayers, like registration, filing, accuracy of the declaration, and payments. So registration is really first and really the beginning of everything. If we would like to have the proper tax system, we need to have clear understanding who are the taxpayers and what are they doing it, what are the data about them. I would like to highlight one more thing also, that having accurate and up-to-date data is beneficial for both, for tax administration and for taxpayers as well. Because nowadays our aim is to improve voluntary compliance. We are more and more trying to facilitate on-time payment, on-time filing. So every voluntary compliance program has it somehow like a reminders. We are sending some reminders to taxpayers to remind them about deadlines, upcoming obligations, and so on. And if we don't have such accurate data like contact details and the sector of taxpayer and so on, it simply does not work. So I would like to highlight one more time that it's not that tax administration is benefiting from having up-to-date data. The taxpayers are also benefiting because they are receiving correct and on-time notification and insights from tax administration.
Thank you very much, Elguja. And for the next question, I'll start with you so that Mr. Mohammed can follow through after you. So also there are key things. I like that you have brought out the obligations of a tax administration, really, registration, filing, payments, and assessments. And again, it goes back to our main discussion that taxpayer registration is the backbone of all these key obligations. The other thing that you have brought out that is really critical is the value it brings when we are engaging our taxpayers. Communication, service delivery to the taxpayers. When we send reminders about filing and payments, if we do not have accurate registers, then we would not be able to effectively communicate to our taxpayers. And that is very, very critical. When we undertake TADAT assessments, after the TADAT assessment as tax administrators and tax administrations, we undertake some reforms to help us address some of the gaps that have been identified. So, Mr. Elguja from Georgia, are there reforms that you have implemented to enhance the taxpayer register? I would also want you to please highlight, were there any challenges that you encountered when implementing these reforms? Which reforms succeeded and which did not? Please go ahead.
Thank you for this question. Of course, I would start from very beginning. Of course, it was a set of reforms, just not one or two or three programs, because when first TADAT assessment was done in Georgia, it was 2016. So in this report, we find out that we have some challenges almost in every area. So we started to working how and where and when to start this reform. So as you have already mentioned that we are discussing, the first thing is registration. So I would highlight some several reforms, several programs that is directly connected to our topic. Like for instance, after this TADAT assessment and evaluation, and we have seen and discussed what we have to do to improve our database quality, there's several programs. For instance, like first one I can mention that program for detecting unregistered persons, so-called unregistered taxpayers. So this program is ongoing. It's fully established. It's formalized and so on and so on. So we are using third-party data, mainly other government agencies. Also, we are using e-commerce data to detect some individuals who are trying to act as a business, but they are not registered. And this process is done routinely, which that is a part of the full registration database. Another very important program is a data quality program. This data quality program covers all mainly all key taxpayer dimensions. So this program is aimed to have up-to-date and accurate data about the taxpayer, about the main dimensions like activity, address, contact details, and so on and so on. Such details that are really crucial that we have thought that to have up-to-date and very important. So again, this program is also automated, so we have third-party data, we have some internal data, there is a cross-check, there is a preset rule-based approach, so we are detecting, how to say, some records that from our perception might be incorrect, so we are, and then further activities are followed up. For instance, it depends on the type of data. It might be communication, it might be sending SMS, it might be visiting on premises to see whether this taxpayer is actually working or not, or what kind of activities these taxpayers are carrying, and so on. One more very important program is the so-called on-time filing program. So it's also the part of the registration, because this program is responsible for registering taxpayer by tax types. Before this program and before the reform in our legislation, we do not have any obligation from taxpayer perspective to register per taxes. So it was really challenging. So after this reform, this program aim is to determine whether taxpayer has some obligation to file or not, and to cross-check this data and to validate whether taxpayer indicated their obligations correctly or not. Again, there is a preset rules and reminders, and some follow-up actions are followed if some taxpayers fail to do, if some taxpayers indicate incorrectly or do not follow up filing. Even estimated assessment may arise after if some taxpayers fail to submit declarations. So these are the main programs that are connected to the registration and also on-time filing. As I have mentioned, these all programs are fully automated or semi-automated. That means that there are preset rules, criteria, or indicators, however we call it, that in the software is automatically assessing, defining some cases, and via case management it is handled. Some low-risk taxpayers are just communicated via automated SMSs or e-messages. For high-risk taxpayers, so-called, there is a communication channel and even visiting on premises. As for challenges, may I continue?
Yes, please continue.
Yeah. As for challenges, as I have mentioned, after the TADAT assessment, we find out that there are quite a huge room for improvement. So it's not just the software or something, it needs some legal changes as well. Yeah? By legal changes, it means that taxpayers have more obligations. They need more things to do, even some penalties we are introduced. So it's not easy to go through this process to persuade top management and agencies and other stakeholders that it is really necessary to implement such project, that while we need to visualize, we need to clearly underline that these reforms are really needed. So one very important and helpful tool was TADAT assessment report, that brought in paper. It was clear and it was written that what are the issues, what are the challenges. So it was much more easier when we had this TADAT assessment report to persuade our top managers and other stakeholders that these reports should be done and can be done, and it's more beneficial for tax administration and for our perspective as well.
Thank you very much. I'd like to point out some key things that you've talked about. Data quality. most tax administrations do not take this don't take this seriously, and it has a very huge impact on the taxpayer register. So it's very interesting to hear that you took this as a priority and by using third party data. It's also important to note that you use the TADAT assessment report to address the challenge that you're facing. I agree with you that some of these reforms, in terms of resources, can be quite expensive. However, I'm delighted to understand and to hear you say that after the TADAT assessment, you are able to use the performance assessment report to show the value of these reforms to your senior management, and definitely having a follow-up, a repeat TADAT assessment, because you have the first TADAT assessment, and after the first TADAT assessment, you then go into addressing the gaps. So it is important to have a repeat TADAT assessment to see if the reforms you're undertaking are adding any value. So thank you so much, Mr. Elguja. Mr. Mahmoud, 45 years is really, really great experience. How did you and how do you manage to ensure that your taxpayer register is accurate? What are some of the reforms that you have implemented over time? And also from a management perspective, because you have been both in operations and management, and now you're the acting director general. What are some of the challenges you encounter internally and externally when it comes to implementation of these reforms? And you could give specific examples of the reforms. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Dama. I think that the main reform that we did with respect to registration is that we changed our strategy completely. We moved away from requesting our taxpayers, requesting them to come complete a form either electronically or manually. We moved away from all these registration procedure and tried to automate the whole system. We started by thinking that categorizing our taxpayers into three main categories. First, you have got individuals who are employees. Then we have got individuals who are self-employed or is in business. Then we have got companies. For these three categories, I will explain to you the reforms for each one of them. For the employees, individuals who are employees, what we did, we just make sure that the employers have got an obligation to register, and we changed our PAY system in such a way that the employers are now legally required to submit a monthly PAY return and give the details of all their employees, whether PAY has been deducted or not on these returns, which is monthly and electronically. By so doing, we had a full and accurate database of our taxpayers who are employees. And to avoid any inaccuracies, the NID, the National Identification Number of the employees, was validated upfront in the process of filing the return. So for the individuals who are employees, we got it like this. For the individuals who are not employees, but who are in business or self-employed, the government, the other departments of government agreed to put in place a system where there is an obligation on all economic operators to put there what we call business registration number on all invoices, such that everyone who is in business, individual or even a company, is now required to be registered to get a business registration number, and which is not there already. So what we did, we create an interface with the database of these registrar of businesses, with a register of businesses, such that we get a complete list of all individuals and companies who are on this database. And there as well, the NID for these individuals are validated upfront so that the data that we are getting were data that were accurate. And of course, it was complete because nobody could issue an invoice or carry out business if they are not registered and did not hold a business registration number. For companies as well, there is an obligation to give a business registration number, such that today we have a complete and accurate taxpayer register. From there are those who are employers who will register as an employer, and to register as an employer, the employer just have to use his NID or any other number that has been assigned to him to file a PAYE return. And from there, we know that he is an employer, and therefore we'll register him as an employer. The only thing that at that time, at the start, we had manual is that a person who is required to be VAT registered had to complete a form from our website and complete a VAT registration. But then afterwards, we get this improved so that whenever a company is registering itself with the registrar of companies, the information given allows him to register for VAT, and this is done on the fly between using interfaces between these two databases. Now, coming to the challenges, yes, there were challenges. There were external challenges because we had to make sure that the registrar of businesses, the registrar of companies are in the loop and agrees with us to do this, what we call the interfaces between the two departments. And we had also the issue to convince government to pass a law to ensure that every economic operator has a legal obligation to insert the business registration number on all invoices. Then there was also the issue of to convince the civil status officers, which falls under the Prime Minister's office, to give us the NID of all employees, so that of all persons, so that we can use this database to validate upfront the NIDs of all employees. Therefore, we could have accurate and complete information. Internal challenges, there were internal challenges as well, because to put in place all this system, we had to develop a monthly PAYE return, which is standard and which the employers can use to file the returns electronically. Because there are some employers who have got, let's say, 10 employees, where the data could be captured manually, but there are also employers who have got 200, 300 employees. So we had to put in place a system where the employer download the list of its employees from his payroll. So we had to develop all these and ensure that this system is available. Additionally, we had also to put in place a customer service, which required lots of resources to ensure that when employers or taxpayers are required to file their returns, they get the required support and they can file their returns. So these are like the challenges that we have. But the main thing that we did as a matter of reform is that we moved away completely from completing a form to be registered to building up interfaces with the registrar of companies and also filing the PAYE returns electronically. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mahmoud. It's totally interesting to see how you were able to achieve success in interagency collaborations and ensuring that you leveraged on the government entities around you to enable you implement effective reforms. I will come back to you on that particular area, just to find out whether the data quality from your third parties was as good as the quality of the data in MRA, and how you managed to handle the issues on data quality from all the third parties. So I'll come back to you on that question. You can think through it. Mr. El Gujar, I'll get back to you on a particular question. So when we talk about third-party data and the digital identity systems, taxpayers, most taxpayers in various jurisdictions are of the opinion that when tax administrators try to get third-party data, we are infringing into their privacy. What's your take on that, and how can we reassure the taxpayers that we as tax administrators are going to utilize their data effectively and transparently? And as you tackle that, what is your view on the role of digital identity systems and third-party data sources? What role do they play in strengthening our taxpayer database?
Thank you. As for third-party data and secrecy, so tax secrecy is defined by law, by tax code. So even not every tax officer can access it. Of course, it's defined, it's depending what kind of positions this staff is holding, and it's quite regulated. Besides this, there is a law on personal data protections that is quite strict. And when we are talking about individuals, it's not always visible and possible to work on the data even from the third parties, from other government agencies. There are cases even that we need to get approval from taxpayer to work on this data. So I understand your concern. Also, as for the digitalization, for instance, in Georgia, when taxpayer identification card and taxpayer identification number and personal number are the same. So it's a unique number that every individual, every citizen of Georgia has, and it's quite easy to work on this because tax administration, we are using this same personal number that is given with the Ministry of Justice, that is indicated in this personal ID of the taxpayers. That's makes much more easier to exchange information from third parties and for third parties. As for working on this data, I would like to highlight one more time about the importance of this third-party data and the benefit of this. For instance, recently we have started a project that is PIT prefiling project. So that means we are pre-filling a PIT return for small business taxpayers. One of the data source for filling this return is so-called post transaction data. This means point of sale, so bank transaction data. So when some taxpayers are selling some goods and they are using not cash, the client is paying via their bank cards, this information is reflected, is also part of the income of our taxpayers. So we don't have direct access to this data. However, we have agreement with the banks. We signed the memorandum for all the banks, and when taxpayer gives us the permission, approves our request that we would like to work on this data, and he's approving that you can take the data from the bank, we are receiving this data, and it is clearly written for what purposes we are receiving this data, that we can work on it to analyze and so on and so on. And one more thing is that we are, based on this data, we are pre-filling the tax return. That is really very beneficial for small businesses because they don't need, sometimes they don't have accountants because they are very small businesses and they need to do their work and to do taxation as well. So it's really simplifying procedures, and it's also directly linked to the on-time filing and payment as well, because when there is such tools to pre-fill declarations, its chance of not filing is quite low. So one more time, about the third-party data, of course, it's crucial. It's protected by law when and how we can work on it. But on another hand, it's might and it is very beneficial for both sides, of course, for tax administration and for taxpayers as well, who wants to work clearly and who wants their business to run smoothly.
Thank you very much, Mr. Elguija. Mr. Mahmoud, I'll move back to you. And before we start, there's a key question that has come up that I'd like to hand it over to you. How have you overcome, this is from Mr. Enoch Sengre, how have you overcome challenges facing integration or sharing of third-party data, such as challenges including resistance from government agencies in sharing their data and litigations on legality? So maybe in MRA, in Mauritius revenue, this may not have been a challenge. However, what advice would you give to tax administrations that are experiencing resistance from government agencies? And as you take that up, I know that you have been leading sessions on digital identity systems. What value do you see this bringing to the taxpayer database? Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Let me start by trying to bring some sort of answers to the resistance that the tax administration could face internally with other agencies to get data from them. I mean, luckily in Mauritius, we are not a big country, and we have special relations with the Ministry of Finance. What happens is that the registrar of businesses or registrar of companies is a department that reports as well to the Ministry of Finance. So being given that these two departments report to the Ministry of Finance, building the interface and negotiating with that other department has not been really painful, because the government, the Ministry of Finance, understood clearly the importance of having a modern and accurate and complete database of taxpayers. Then we come to the issue of the national identification numbers, because unless we have a proper database of identification numbers for all taxpayers, we will never be able to validate upfront the NIDs that the employers are giving to us. So again, with the support of the Ministry of Finance, we have been able to negotiate and explain to our counterparts at the Prime Minister's office that this is not something about tax administration only. It's about putting in place a system that will benefit the whole government. Sharing of information benefit the whole government, and by extension, the tax administration will also benefit. So the NIDs have been shared with us, and there is also an agreement so that any new NIDs that are issued are being updated. Now, coming to the question about how I would advise other countries, other jurisdictions to tackle this issue. I think there are not two solutions. There is only one solution: is engagement with the other counterparts, and explaining and I would say educating our stakeholders, our counterparts, that it is about having a modern country, a modern system, a modern tax administration. It's about modernizing all the processes. So, advice that I would give: get the support of your parent ministry, get the support of the political lead. The objective is for the country to move forward, right? Second question about digital identity, I think yes, perfectly. We will never be able to have information that we consider to be trustful, to be trustworthy, if we don't have a system of digital identity. Because anybody who accesses our system or files a document or files a return, we need to know who that person is. Unless we know the person and there is certainty about the identity of the person who is submitting the document, for example, the employers. There need to be certainty about the document, the list that has been submitted for PAYE for whatever month is really coming from that person. So I think it is important, it is critical to have digital identity. What I want to say, digital identity, if you don't have a sophisticated system, a system of login and password may also work, because this is what we did at the start. We ourselves, our IT departments, they generated logins and passwords. I mean, username and passwords. We use the employee registration number as username and computer-generated password. And we send these passwords to the employers so that these are the passwords that they had to use in order to access the system. Then thereafter, when the system has been more sophisticated, then we put in place more sophisticated systems. But at the start, we can use login and password. But just to confirm that digital identity, ensuring that you know the person who is submitting a return is critical for a system to work. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mahmoud. The points you and Mr. Alguja have raised are very critical, and I wish we had more time to discuss this further. However, we have come to the end of our session, and I'd like to give you each 1 minute to give your closing remarks on this particular topic, the value of post TADAT assessment reforms and the value of having a repeat TADAT assessment and the value of having an accurate taxpayer register. Please go ahead. I'll start with Mr. Alguja. Kindly give us your closing remarks, and thank you so much for joining this forum.
Thank you. Of course, as I have mentioned, it's of course, aim can't be to have some kind of rating. However, this TADAT is very useful tool to find out and to see in the figures where you are. And your aim should be, of course, to have the accurate data, to have the proper data, to have the on-time filing rate quite high, and so on and so on. And TADAT is very helpful tool that can measure it like a KPIs and where you are and where you are. It's like a third part, it's like an independent part, and when we have done self-assessment as well. However, when there is a approved part is saying that something is going good or wrong, it's more important to see, look, and to look in details. As for this, our topic and the accuracy of data and the importance of it. Of course, as it was mentioned, it's a backbone. It's very important to have such information, and it has direct impact of the assessments as well. Because when we have proper information, when we know, for instance, for sure that some taxpayers are acting in several sector of activity, and their accrual amount is below some threshold, so we are finding out why it is so, and so on. If, for instance, employment rate is below on this sector of activity, and this gives us very clear thoughts and information to go further, to do more analysis, and to get more accurate information that will further lead to more revenue to the government and more wealth to the people in the country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Alguja. Very great closing remarks. I'll go to Mr. Mahmoud. Kindly give us your closing remarks.
Yes, first thing that I think we need to take away from this chart is, remember, registration is the backbone of any system, any tax system. We need to get this right. We need to get the taxpayer register complete, accurate, and up to date, because anything that you do will have to be plugged in this register. And itself is not accurate, it's not up to date, don't be good. This the second thing I would like to talk about is the importance of a TADAT assessment, right? Why do you go for an exams? To know where you are, to know what are the things that you are doing right and what are the things that needs improvement. This TADAT report that you get after the TADAT assessment should be used as the starting point of reforms. Analyze and see what are the things that I need to do in order to get more efficiency in our tax administration. Because keep in mind that the TADAT guidelines and the TADAT report has already analyzed many tax administrations, the functioning of tax administration, and we don't have to reinvent the wheel. I mean, it has been done for us. I mean, countries, the guidelines are there, the report are there. Just compare what I need to do and what has been done. What is the distance from the frontier, as you call it, and what we need to do in order to progress and make our tax administration become more efficient. Because at the end of the day, our objective is to make sure that all our taxpayers pay their fair share of the tax. So it is important that we make good use of the TADAT report, we made good use of the TADAT guidelines in order to progress. These are my closing remarks. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. I have had the greatest privilege of engaging Mr. El Gujar and yourself, Mr. Mahamat. We've had brilliant discussions on post TADAT reforms and how this can add value to tax administrations. So, three key takeaways that I would also want to add as we close this forum. As you have rightfully explained from Mr. El Gujar and yourself, Mr. Mahmoud, you have leveraged a lot on pre-filling of returns to actually get accurate taxpayer register. And I'd like to also pick on what you mentioned, Mr. Mahmoud, educating stakeholders, identifying who are our key stakeholders and educating them on the value of some of these reforms that we are requesting for, being strategic, and to address some of the questions that have been coming through. As tax administrators, we need to be strategic. And I just want to reiterate what Mr. Mahmoud has said and Mr. El Gujar said in their closing remarks. Let us leverage on the performance assessment reports that we use that we get from the TADAT assessments that have been undertaken. These reports are a very great starting point, and they can help us when we are engaging some of our stakeholders. They can help us educate our stakeholders and help them understand why it is important to undertake these reforms. This is a brilliant discussion. Again, taxpayer registration is the backbone. These reforms are very critical, and TADAT assessments are also critical to helping us understand the gaps and addressing how we can address our gaps. So the post-TADAT assessment reforms are critical, but it is important for us to internally go through our assessment reports and address the gaps based on our reports. Gentlemen, it's been a great pleasure. Thank you so much for those who joined us. Let us keep engaging and help each other understand how best to move forward. This platform is great as it helps us understand from each other, gain knowledge from each other on how best we can tackle some of the challenges that we experience. My name is Damakrin, and this was a great pleasure. Gentlemen, have a good afternoon. Thank you very much. This brings us to the end of our discussion today. Thank you.
Thank you, Damakrin, for your great support and moderating. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.